my parents are like, son, everyone's going that way and you're always walking the opposite side. And, people talk about goals, right? Goals are really important. But to be honest, I think goals are overrated.
Yeah.
I think intentions are important.
Yeah.
Because my parents were not well off, I always felt the need to prove myself and have a kind of my own way of making my own money. And I dropped out twice from college, went to 2 different colleges, dropped out. And I was like, I can't do academic. I'm not an academic person. But if you don't know what you want to do at 18, which is also a funny thing, like, what do you want to do? At 16, they kept asking, what do you want to do? I don't know.
It's a big ask. People see what you've achieved today. They don't see the journey that you've taken.
Social media is misleading a lot of people. Everyone's interested in learning about the last 10 minutes of your life, but they don't realize all the pain and sacrifices and the compounding effect of learning that's got you to this point now.
Yeah.
When you are younger, try and do as many things as you can and enjoy that process. And the struggle is important.
Welcome to the show, Ash. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
We always begin asking every guest this first question, which is, what's your origin story? Tell us a bit about you and your background, where you grew up, and the story to date.
Sure. So going back in time, wow. So I was born in Birmingham to Pakistani immigrant parents. So I'm second generation.
Yeah.
And I was raised in the local inner city of Birmingham. Gun crime and drugs all around me.
Right.
So never really had a good start in life, but actually my parents did as much as they could to help me educate me.
Yeah.
And so I went to some nice schools, local schools, and I managed to get into the grammar school, which is quite good.
Yeah.
And and ever since I've been a kid, I've always been, my parents are like, son, everyone's going that way and you're always walking the opposite side.
Right.
Why are you doing this? Right. Yeah. And so I've always been doing things in a different way.
Yeah.
From school. And when I was 13 years old, I always felt like, because my parents were not well off, I always felt the need to prove myself and have a kind of my own way of making my own money.
Right.
And at 13, I started the paper round. And then at 16, I started selling CDs, which later I found out were illegal to sell.
You live and learn, right?
And you live and learn, And 16 years old, wanting to earn some extra money.
Yeah.
And I failed my A-levels, and I sat upstairs in my parents' attic, and they were like, look, son, there's only 4 things you could do. Either you're a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, or you're a failure, and you're the failure.
Right.
And I was like, oh no. So
it's a very immigrant mindset, isn't it? So you have to be one of those 2 or 3, right? So doctor, engineer, lawyer, or something like that, something technical.
Yeah.
But you didn't go to university.
So I didn't know. So I went to college to do some BTECs and all these other H&Ds and all sorts of other things that were available to me to do in IT and so on. And I dropped out twice from college. Went to 2 different colleges, dropped out. And I was like, I can't do academic. I'm not an academic person.
Right.
And although I did well in my GCSEs and so on, I just didn't feel like I was learning what I wanted to learn. I'm more practically orientated. I'm a kinetic learner, as I would say.
Right.
I learn by doing.
Yeah.
And and so I dropped out of college, and at that point I started working at a local stationery store called Staples at the time. It doesn't exist now.
Yeah.
And never had a computer at home at this point. And I was working in the electronics department of Staples, which was selling computers and printers.
Right.
This was back in 1996, 97. And there was a display computer that was for sale that they gave to staff for a third of the price.
Right.
And I managed to secure that for myself. Came home, and I plugged the modem into the phone socket, and that's where my world changed.
Yeah. And I knew you at a very early age started sort of coding and just being on the internet and just tinkering with lots of things. Tell us a bit about that, and how did you actually decided to do that in the first place? Yeah.
So whilst I was working in retail, there was also a massive book aisle in my department. And it had all these computer books on there, the dummies guides and all these kind of C++ and all the HTML programming books. And my manager called me in one day and said, hey Ash, come here, I want to show you some CCTV footage. I was like, oh shit, what have I done? And he's like, look, at 8 o'clock you were sitting here, at 8:45 you're still sitting there.
Yeah.
And what I was doing was reading books from the aisle.
Wow.
And I got interested in developing and doing HTML and coding, and I started reading all these books. But putting them back on the shelf, reading the books, putting them back on the shelf.
Yeah.
And that's where I got excited about the internet and what it was. And then I got home, I plugged the internet in, and I was like, right, I need to do something. So my very first idea was called Top 10 of Everything.
Top 10 of everything.
Top 10 single, top 10 food, top 10 this.
Right.
So I started to develop in a Microsoft package called Front Page.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Really old.
You're really taking me back to my computer programming days.
Yeah.
I did one year of that, and yeah, HTML, C++, Front Page. Yeah.
So I built my site in that, and
Wow.
I built the site, and you're talking about 56k modem days, and I wanted to embed the music, embed the videos. I wanted to do all this cool stuff, and the page would just take forever to download. Slowly.
Yep.
It's like it's not very good.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we used to upload stuff, and then basically you just go away for a few hours, and hopefully you'll upload after like 6-7 hours of you pressing the button upload. So
the interesting thing is back then, website speed was important because we had a 56k modem and images wouldn't download fast enough. And now when you come back 25 years later, it's still the most important thing to get a website optimized properly, the web speed.
Yeah.
Right?
Something's never changed, I guess.
Yeah, hasn't changed, right? Yeah. So interesting, right?
Yeah. So just going back to your point around, you did A levels and you did, college, and then you dropped out a couple of times. You think about the young people today, and a lot of them are choosing to go to universities, and some of them are not. I have spoken to a lot of them who have chosen not to go to universities, and there isn't right or wrong here, but if you speak to the young people today, and someone asked you, should I go to university? What's your answer there?
It depends. Now, look, if you want to be a doctor or a dentist, then I expect all my doctors and dentists have gone to university and studied for 6 or 7 years.
Sure.
Right? So there are certain degrees or professions that require degrees of and learning, and lots of learning and deep learning. So certain professions require that. But if you don't know what you want to do at 18, which is also a funny thing, like, what do you want to do? At 16, they kept asking, what do you want to do? I don't know.
It's a big ask.
At 18, I don't know.
Right.
Right? And I meet so many doctors in my network now, and I ask them the question, so do you still want to be a doctor? And I find that more than 50% of them say, actually, you know what? No. Right?
Yeah.
But they've spent 6-7 years studying for it. Right?
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to go to university, think about what you want to do as your profession. If you really want to be a doctor, then think about it from a different perspective. I find that when a lot of people want to be part of a certain profession, it's because of external factors.
Yeah.
Oh, my mom was a doctor, my dad was a doctor, or I'm going to, it's a status thing, for example.
Right.
And you find that, there's research that says that doctors who are the most caring doctors have the best patient outcomes.
Yep.
And if you're not a caring person and you want to be a doctor, you have to question yourself.
Sure.
Why do you want to be a doctor then? Because you have to care for people.
You're doing it for someone else then.
So you have to understand yourself about as well as your personality. What is it that you want to do? What's your intention behind what you want to do? I think that's really important. What's the intention behind what you want to do?
Yeah.
Is it for, we talk about it in the Unfair Advantage book, right? There's 3 things you get from university, right? You get knowledge, you get a network, and you get signaling. The ability to signal to the world that you've been to an institution and you got a piece of paper to say that you've been there for 3 years or you've done something. And most people nowadays, if you want to get knowledge, you don't have to go to university to get knowledge.
No.
Network, yes, you could. If you go to a good university though.
Yes.
If you go to not a very good university, what type of network you're going to make? I know people who are in LSE, who are in the London universities from abroad because they think the network's going to help them, and it does.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the final one is signal. You signal to the world, hey, look, I went to university. I can stick around for 3 years in university and pass my exams and get a 1st or a 2-1.
Yeah.
So I'm very consistent and give me a job. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the message is clear to me that you need to really think hard before you, decide to do something, right, at university. If it's a quite technical thing like a doctor or an engineer, then it probably makes sense. But it makes sense. But if it's something like maybe, business, just generalizing here, then, 3 years spent in uni versus 3 years doing your own startup, you're probably going to learn a lot more when you're doing your own startup, right?
Or, which is the other thing, which is where people think about it and get confused because they want to jump into the startup world or entrepreneurship world, right, very quickly, you can go and work for a startup for 1 year and decide if you want to go to university and do a different degree or do the degree that you want to do.
Right. Yeah.
It gives you the opportunity. So I really believe in that gap year kind of process. I think at that age, if you don't know what you want to do, then go out and explore the world and get some experience somewhere in the corporate world, or even travel.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the things I wish I did. I wish I traveled, because you learn a lot by traveling around the world.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
And then it helps you understand where you want to go.
Yeah.
And I think as a mature student also, you end up becoming much more dedicated and motivated to get the right degree rather than just going for the year and just pissing about, basically.
For the sake of doing it, right? Yeah, absolutely. So again, sorry, going back to, when you were 18, you got your first computer and you're uploading, at a very slow speed. I know you started a shoe company.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that.
So my best friend at school, his parents owned a shoe manufacturing company. They manufactured ladies' shoes, and they had some retail outlets.
Right.
And he went on to do economics at Manchester University. And he was like, Ash, this internet thing's really big. I think we should start trying to sell shoes on the internet.
Right.
I was like, really? So I said, okay, let's sit down and let's work on this plan. So we built a website called shoeimage.com, selling shoes on the internet. And everyone's like, who's going to buy shoes on the internet?
This was 1999?
1999.
Before the dot-com bubble.
Before the dot-com bubble, before there was available Shopify apps and plug and play. It was all
a lot
coding,
easier
PHP,
now.
MySQL, HTML. It was literally building your own shopping cart from ground up.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And then integrating WorldPay. And that took like 3 months to do.
That's crazy.
The WorldPay was the integration thing, and that took like forever to integrate. Now you
3
can
months.
stick in Stripe, 7 lines of code, and you're done, right?
Yeah, so easy.
So that was a great experience because I learned how to build a website. I optimized the website, and we were number one in Alta Vista in those days. And Ask Jeeves in those days.
No Google. No.
Yeah, and Google was just coming out, so I think it was just coming out at that point. There was Infobox and a few other ones, and I optimized the website to make sure that when someone typed in women's sandals, our website came to the top.
Yeah.
And I did that, and we were beating every single brand in the whole of UK.
Yeah.
All the designer brands, all the well-known shops, everything you typed in to do with women's shoes, we were right at the top. So I learned the early days of what we call digital marketing and making sure we positioned what we built, not just built the website.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of lessons, I spent a lot of time optimizing images, trying to work out how to crunch them and get them right. That was interesting.
Yeah.
And and then the other problem we had was fraud.
Yeah.
There was really funny, right? We had a lot of people coming to our website buying multiple pairs of shoes in one go. So the average basket size was like £350 sometimes.
Wow.
I was like, we're on to something, smashing it.
Right.
But then I looked at the data, and I realized a lot of shoes were being returned.
Oh, okay.
Right. So what people were doing, which is easily doable now, you can try the clothes on and shoes on at home and send back what you don't want.
Right.
In those days, the whole logistics of that didn't
it's
exist.
Not trackable,
right?
probably.
Wasn't trackable, right?
Yeah.
And then the other interesting thing I learned, which is when you start looking at data and looking at insights, and that's where I started to understand more about data and insights. Go, okay, well, what is this data thing? Right. So we had this web file analyzer, and I looked at the data, and I didn't know what this was. I was just doing it naturally, like an entrepreneur would do, and I noticed that there were a lot of men buying larger size shoes.
Interesting. Okay.
And I was like, hang on a sec, this is a different audience in the market that we didn't think of. Right?
Yeah.
And we kept getting, our stock kept running out because women's shoes generally, there's more quantities made in the lower sizes.
Right, yeah.
So we had this issue of logistics and stock out issues.
Yeah.
And that was quite interesting to deal with at the time. So, early days of e-commerce. Right?
E-commerce, yeah. But you ended up selling that company, right?
Yeah, so I ended up selling that company back to my friend who carried on building it, and we did a couple of other things with it as well. And he built it out into a wholesale outlet, and we did really well with it. And the reason was basically because we won an award for the best e-commerce website in Birmingham, West Midlands area. And I was like, we won an award, and I don't know how they picked us. They just picked us, and an agency saw that I'd won an award for this website, and they reached out to me and said, Ash, we've got some jobs in our agency and we're looking for talented people like yourself. Why didn't you talk to us? And I was like, yeah. And then I looked at the job and I was like, oh, damn, it's in London. I'm still in Birmingham at this time.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm 19 years old. And whilst I was in this attic, by the way, coding away, building this website, I was a hermit. I didn't go anywhere.
Right.
I didn't go to any parties. I didn't do any of that stuff. I didn't go to any weddings. I just was there coding away. And my siblings were just laughing at me all the time, going, "Oh, look, this guy. He thinks he's gonna, make something on this internet thing. What is this internet thing?"
Yeah.
Right?
The internet thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
This internet thing. Right. And they gave me a birthday card, and on the birthday card it said future.com millionaire.
Yeah.
Right. Turned 18, and they were laughing as they gave it to me.
Yeah.
My sister bought this card, and in those days, the whole thing was about .com. It was a .com thing happening. Yeah. So she bought me this funny card, and I put it on my windowsill in the attic, and I looked at that card every single day.
Amazing, yeah.
Right, I looked at the card every single day.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't realize that some of these smaller things come back to you eventually, and you start thinking about those. Well, how did that happen?
Yeah,
and why did that happen?
I want to come back to this in a second, but it's a really interesting point that people see what you've achieved today and where you are today, but they don't see the journey that you've taken, right? Sure. It's not an overnight thing. You put in that hard work, the grit.
Yeah.
Those, the days that you're sitting in the attic, just, not going and, partying and whatever.
Sure.
Not saying that's bad. You can still do that.
Sure.
But you did put a lot of hard work. And, the culture that we live in today about overnight success, instant hits, right? I want everything now. How do you feel about this thing, and what would you say to young people today that are expecting everything to happen now?
I think that social media is misleading a lot of people, right? Because with social media, you only see the best image, the best shot, the best food that they're eating.
Yeah.
The best times, right? And
it's not
everything
real.
looks great. Being an entrepreneur is great, and it's like, freedom, I'm outside of the matrix, or whatever it is that people say, right? But the truth is, it's so much harder than that. And there's a lot of psychological toll that it takes on you. I think the challenge is that today people want everything. And if you want everything, you're not going to get it, because to get somewhere in life that's going to help you become the best at it, you're going to have to learn to sacrifice.
Absolutely.
And I think it's the sacrifices that you take. Now, I've sacrificed a lot of things, right? And things which I'm not happy about as well, right? But at the same time, I've sacrificed other things. And I'm like, okay, I have no regrets on those. So as you get older, you start to learn about that.
Yeah.
The truth is, there's no such thing as a easy life and just working 9 to 5. If you really want to do it, then you got to work the hours. You got to put them in. This whole idea of work-life balance, actually, I'm imbalanced with work.
Yeah.
I'm imbalanced. And as entrepreneurs, you are going to be naturally imbalanced. You can't have both things at the same time, right?
I actually think there's no such thing as a work-life balance, because work is part of life. So you need life balance. So some days, some weeks, some years, some months, there will be a lot more work than your personal stuff that you do. Yeah. And then some other times it will be the opposite, that you work less. Yeah. Like, for example, weekends you don't work as much, but weekdays you work a lot more, right? So I feel like finding that balance, whatever that balance for you, because some people might say that it's 50-50, but some people might be actually very happy with 70-30, whatever that ratio is to you, life, work, including. So, but the point is that the journey that you go through, regardless of 50-50 or 70-30, is very important, right? It doesn't happen overnight. You have to put in the work. Sure. You have to, give it time as well.
Sure. I think the challenge right now is that we're living in a economy, in a place where you can just order food and get it within 20 minutes. Yeah. The convenience, everything is faster and quicker.
Instant,
Right? So, and I actually want to build a business, and I instantly want to raise money, or I instantly want to have a £1 million a year business or something. Right. It doesn't happen like that. There's a lot of groundwork that goes into it. And there's a lot of myths in the industry of entrepreneurship, which is why we wrote the book. Yep. Because it's like you're just looking at the press and what people are telling you. Go behind the scenes and you'll start seeing a lot more around how it really happened. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs who sacrificed a lot, their health, their family, their relationships, all sorts of things, right? Yeah. And they regret that. Yeah. And so the key is to learn how to get more into equilibrium to what your equilibrium is. And also, I think it's important to realize that it's subject to your age as well. Now, I remember when I was 21, I was bouncing all over the place. Right. And even now, at my age, I'm in a meeting room with younger people, and I'm still bouncing all over the place. I'm like, where's energy?
Yeah.
So energy consumption is very important. So when you are younger, you have more ability to have more energy. Yeah, you can get away with eating something dodgy one night and carry on. Right now, I see I'm way up. You know, that's it. Game over for a couple of days. Oh, we're gonna take it easy for a couple of days, right? Slow a bit, you know. So I think it's in understanding that as you get older physically, there's going to be more, not just physically, but also from a life perspective. If you get married, have kids, all these things change, and that becomes harder and harder to do. So when you are younger, try and do as many things as you can and enjoy that process. And the struggle is important. That's
I mean, I really like that. It's a very powerful message. That when you're, you know, in your 20s, or even like before, like 18, you know, starting uni, whatever it is, right, or not, you have the biggest gift that you have is the gift of time. So use that time wisely. So which means that, you know, if you wanted to try everything before you actually settled something. And I think this is where the society norms comes in, right? That, oh, you go to uni and then you get a job and then you stay in the lane. But then I look at your journey, it's been almost the opposite of that, right? So you didn't go to uni, or you went to college and you dropped out. And then you did everything sort of your thing, sitting in the attic, sold the company. And then, you know, you did all the whole, you know, web journey. And then you ended up at Just Eat as a marketing director. You IPO'd that. So it's been anything but a straight line, right? If you think about it, right?
I mean, I was with my friends last night talking about it. What were the pivotal moments in how I went to where I went, right? And you know, people talk about goals, right? Goals are really important. But to be honest, I think goals are overrated.
Yeah.
I think intentions are important.
Intentions. Okay.
I think your intention is important, and the goal will take care of itself. If you intend every day to get the right habits to get to where you want to get to, the goals will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's where we get confused also when you're younger. The schooling system knocks out this very important trait, which is very important for entrepreneurs or startup founders. Curiosity. It knocks it out of you from school, from middle school, from, you know, secondary school, junior school,
all the way
right through to university. By the time you get through to university, they've knocked this thing, which is so important as a young adult, to have curiosity. And I think curiosity is the thing that makes people want to look at different things. I'm still very curious now. I'm asking questions all the time, and I'm thinking about, oh, what's this? That's interesting. You know, so curiosity is a really very important thing. And that's because when you go through a schooling system, it's very binary. Either it's wrong or it's right. There's no gray areas.
So I know we talked about passion as well. What comes first, curiosity or passion?
I think you can be passionate about something and then go into it and build your become more curious about it. But I think a lot of people have this thing where they say, oh yeah, you have to be passionate about something. Well, actually, I'm more curious about something, and then I become passionate about it afterwards.
Right.
When I start seeing those little milestones and going, oh Ash, thank you so much, that's really helped me. Oh, I'm getting a bit more passionate about this. This person's really liking what I'm doing. I'm creating value.
Yeah.
Now I can be passionate about something that doesn't create value. I can be passionate about coffee lids.
Yeah.
Right, and say, yeah, coffee lids. But where am I creating any value? You know, what am I doing? Am I creating a new coffee lid maybe, or a new design? So it depends on what your passions are, and it depends on how you turn your curiosity and passions and combine them together. You know, I know many personal trainers, and they become personal trainers because they're passionate about fitness.
Right.
And soon as they become personal trainers, they get depressed and unhappy.
Right.
Because their passion is now turned into a transactional thing. They need to make a living, and people are not understanding what they're doing.
Yeah.
And now it's causing challenges in their real passion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to understand.
So staying curious always is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think curiosity and creativity, and being able to think that there's no wrong and right when it comes to trying to create value for the world.
Yeah.
And creating value is the important thing. And I think that's something which is knocked out of people. It's not about passing an exam.
Right.
It's not about just getting something right and ticking it off a list and having a tick box list.
Yeah.
It's going beyond that and looking at the challenges and things that people are struggling with and how you can add value.
Yeah.
And that comes from curiosity. How do you go in the next stage? And I've always been like that. You know, I'll always look at something. Why doesn't that work? Why is it okay? So why doesn't what?
Yeah.
And then I'll start asking questions and go deeper and deeper. Now some people hate that, by the way. I remember that when I was younger.
Right.
And this is the thing to my younger self, right? I was like thinking to myself, I asked a lot of questions.
Right.
And some people didn't like it. And I started to reflect on that. And I realized it was because I was probably too direct in asking my questions.
Sure.
And I didn't know how to pose my questions in the right way.
But then again, like if we want the youth of today to become the leaders of tomorrow, we need to answer those questions. We need to give them time. We need to empower them. And we need to actually put some energy into the youth today. So if that means that you have to answer 1,000 questions, then be it. That's basically my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think this is why we started, this podcast to help the youth. You mentioned the future.com billionaire card from your sister. And it made me think about, you sitting there in the attic and just working away. What was it that made you just keep going and not give up?
Naivety. I was very naive and curious. I was not smart enough to know the things that could go wrong. So I just carried on. Yeah. And I didn't feel entitled. I find some people who go to university and then they'll get a degree and go, right, I'm here now, I'm Mr. Graduate. Give me a good job.
Right.
And I never felt that. I felt I'd go into work and if I want to make the tea, I'll be the best tea maker in the world. If I was going to photocopy, I'll be the best photocopier in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So I had no entitlement and I just went for everything. So I kind of reduced the shackles. I didn't apply for graduate jobs. I applied for normal jobs.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I don't graduate job. What do I need training in? I can just do the job, right? So I think that unshackled me, and the lack of entitlement, and also I think what kept me going was actually my family. Weirdly, my brother went off and did degrees in physics and masters in computer science and getting their distinctions, and my sister went off and did her thing. My parents were like, "Oh, son, it's okay. Whatever you do, you'll be fine."
You'll be fine, yeah.
And so that kind of released me with unconditional love from my parents to say, we love you anyway.
That's a very important point, because if you have the support, whether family or friends or whoever, you almost feel you have the psychological safety and you're able to actually take more risks or, keep going essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I suppose I had an underdog story and I had a chip on my shoulder at the same time.
Right.
A chip on the shoulder was actually, you don't need to go to university to be successful.
But was that through, I'm sorry if I'm coming across arrogant here, but was it arrogance or was it truly that you did some analysis and said, this is not for me?
No, I reflected on this later in my life. I didn't know at the time that was the thing that was driving me.
Right.
I didn't have the self-awareness at the time to know that. Right. So I could have come across as being a bit too direct and harsh and a bit too intense, as some people say.
Yeah.
Right. When it comes to business, intense. Right. And as I self-reflected later in my life, I realized, I know now why I feel like this, because I've always had this chip on my shoulder that actually, I can still become successful and do things without having the normal route of doing something.
Yeah.
So I had to prove something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you know your answer about being naive actually reminds me of the famous Steve Jobs speech that he gave at the graduation ceremony, where pretty much, what he said was, stay hungry, stay foolish. Right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I think hunger is very important. I see, absolutely right. Staying foolish within bounds,
sure.
Of course. That's a key thing, staying foolish within bounds. But then having hunger. And I see that's a big challenge in society today. Like, I see that with my daughter. Like, how can I inspire her to have hunger? Because I can't do anything with somebody to motivate them if they haven't got the hunger. I've still got that hunger. I call it the internal flame. Right? Yeah. I've got internal flame and it's roaring all the time. And I'm hoping that people will come around me to help fan that flame a bit more and roar it even more.
Right.
If you haven't got the flame inside you, I can't ignite that for you.
Because then that creates curiosity, and hopefully that leads to passion and something.
So you have to open
amazing.
up. So you have to lose the fear of failure. You have to lose the fear of being perfect in everything you do, and being right.
Which is tough, right? At the moment, if you think about the young people, because they are being shown all these amazing things on social media, as you were saying, right? And it's all about looking nice or eating nice or driving a fancy car or whatever. Yeah. So the fear of failure is extremely high, in my opinion, because if you can't achieve any of that, you don't even start trying to get there.
Sure.
Right. I also like the story that you told me about this teenager when you were driving a nice car.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I love that story.
Yeah, so when Just Eat IPO'd, obviously I got into some money, and then it was like, okay, let's do the things I wanted to do. So I had this picture of a car in my room as a kid, and I said, one day I'm going to buy that car. And I actually ended up buying exactly the same color, and I'm buying that car. So I was driving in an area, not so well-to-do area, and so a boy came up to me and goes, "Oh, I like your car. Oh, thank you. You know, do you want to sit inside it?" And he sat inside it and started taking pictures, selfies. I thought, "Oh, okay, cool." And he goes, "Oh, yeah. So how do you get this? How do you get this?
Yeah.
How do you get this?" was his question.
Yeah.
I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, how did you get this car?" "Oh, okay, yeah. It's quite a long story actually." And he's like, "No. How did you get the car?"
Yeah.
Obviously, I bought it, but how did you get it? Go. Yeah. But let me take you back. Have you got 20 minutes? I can talk about where I started. So maybe you can learn some lessons. No, I don't have time for that. I don't know how you got it now.
I got it now, yeah.
So basically, everyone's interested in learning about the last 10 minutes of your life, but they don't realize all the pain and sacrifices and the compounding effect of learning that's got you to this point now.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people go wrong, because they look at it and go, right, there must be a blueprint for this. And if this person teaches me the blueprint, then I can get the same thing.
Just follow it.
But the truth is, success does leave clues, but everyone's success is different and everyone's journey is different.
Indeed.
And so you have to understand your own circumstances and situation and your own self-awareness of who you are as an individual.
Yeah.
Before you start thinking, actually, I can do exactly what this person's done in the way they've done it. But actually, you could do better if you wanted to, if you're comparing yourself to that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge that we face in today's society, right? Which is people are looking at other people and comparing themselves. And it's easy to compare now. It's easy to compare.
It's all out there. Yeah. I talk about patience in one of the other episodes, and I give an example of a mango farmer. So when you plant a mango seed, it takes minimum 10 years.
Yeah.
So maybe actually 12 is the average. So imagine a mango farmer planting a seed and not actually bearing fruit for 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
And you still have to put in all the hard work every month, every day, sowing the seed, the whole thing that goes into farming.
Sure.
And then hopefully in 10 plus years, you'll see the fruits of your labor, literally.
Yeah.
And if you take that analogy and apply that to your career, right, it's impossible to be successful overnight. I mean, there are examples. There's people who've made it overnight, which is great, but it's an exception. It's not a rule. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to acknowledge that without hard work, without putting in the effort, you will get that race car or the sports car. Right?
But it's defining what you mean by overnight, right? So when Just Eat IPO'd, overnight, things changed.
Sure.
But what happened in the past?
Last 5 years or 10 years.
That was an overnight event.
Yeah.
Because it's a liquidity event, right? An IPO, bang, okay. Right? When your company gets bought, that's an overnight event. It's happened, and that's it. It's at that moment.
We have to be worthy for an IPO, right? And that's where the 5-year, 10-year journey comes in.
10, 15-year journey, and all the headaches and the tears and the laughter and the, everything. Yeah. So I think people confuse that with when it comes to patience. When the flower blooms, it's when it's at the right time. When you plant the seed, and timing is important. I think that's the biggest component to a lot of success, actually. Timing. And timing comes with patience.
Indeed.
Right? When you look at the most successful companies and businesses and people's lives, we talk about this in the book about time being in the right time at the right place, right? In the right place at the right time. Yeah?
Speaking of the book, why did you write the book?
Oh, many reasons, actually. The main reason was I didn't want people to feel like if they came from a background like mine in the inner city or a working class background, that their story didn't matter.
Right.
And that fact that they can't be authentic in life, and that they didn't need to have a victim mindset around it.
Right.
A lot of people in my communities have this victim mindset. Oh, I can't do this because of this. I can't get here because of this. And I wanted to unshackle them from that. Say, actually, the fact that you are growing up on the streets, you're getting street smart.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who don't have those. They're book smart. They don't have street smarts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to flip the story to say, actually, your unique self and your circumstances can be flipped into an advantage in your life if you know how to take advantage of it. That becomes an unfair advantage for you. It gives you a competitive edge because, not unfair in an unethical way, unfair because your life is different and my life is different and my journey is different.
Yeah.
And so knowing how to narrate that in your own mind and then externally helps you build self-confidence.
Yeah.
And I think the reason the book was written was not it's not a prescriptive book. I read a lot of self-help books, and it was like, do this, wake up at 5 o'clock, write your goals down, meet 5 people, your network is your, like all these things.
Yeah.
The book is not prescriptive.
Right.
The book is something that you explore to build your own self-awareness. And you take away from the book what is important for you, and every individual does that.
I think that's what I like about the book is it's rather than telling you exactly what the recipe is, it gives you, well, here's all the ingredients, build your own dish, right? Because everybody has a unique strength. And that's where the Miles framework comes in, is what's your unique strength? And everybody has some strengths, right?
Yeah.
So how do you understand what's your unfair advantage?
Yeah, and also understand your weaknesses.
Sure.
As well.
Yeah,
because
of course.
Things, you can't just do something by yourself, right? I've always worked in collaboration is very important. I've always worked in teams. I've always had co-founders. I've had a co-author, Hassan, for example.
Hassan, yeah.
Right? So for me, I think it's understanding your weaknesses and your strengths and knowing how to build the team to get to your mission or your impact that you want to create.
Yeah.
So the ultimate reason for the book is to create gratitude, really. Is to be grateful for what you have, not what you don't have.
Yeah.
And I think that's the essence of the book. And when you start looking at that, even when you got down to the point of looking at what passport you have,
right?
People don't even realize that some passports don't give you access to many countries, right? We've got a British passport. Oh, damn, I can go anywhere I want pretty much, right?
Almost, yeah.
It's a strong passport, right? It's not one of the top ones, but it's strong enough. So you start thinking about those things. If I want to start a company, and I've started a company in Dubai. It took me 6 months, paperwork, go back and forth, do this, do that. In the UK, I can go online and start a company if the name's available within 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
We don't think about those early.
I guess that's an unfair advantage for people who are British in terms of opening a company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the limited company setup. If you fail, you can start again. It's not, catastrophic. That's it. It's game over.
Right.
That's why you become serial entrepreneurs. That's what serial entrepreneur means. You try things all the time. Some will be really successful. I've had some great successes. I've had some failures, and I've had some kind of soft landings.
Yeah.
Right. And throughout life, you just need to take more shots. And as you take more shots, that becomes more important. When you're younger, you need to take more shots to life. Shots on the board. Don't be scared. Don't sit back and say, nah, it's not for me. Just take the shot.
Yeah.
See where it takes you.
So how do you bring that to life? Because yes, I know the book is about, it's not prescriptive, but if you have to prescribe something to the young people when it comes to that advice, like just try new things, what's the 1-2 things they can do today?
I think the first thing is to realize that if you want to gain knowledge or learn something, there's people out there that can teach you this, and you can learn it.
So invest in yourself. Yeah.
There's no such thing as I can't find this information anymore. It's all accessible.
Yeah.
And there's many people out there who I believe, and I think this is the thing for me when I was younger, I didn't feel like I could ask for help from anyone. Right. And I think asking for help is really important when you're young.
Yeah.
Don't fear the ability to ask for help. I get a lot of emails, a lot of LinkedIn requests. Can you help me with this? And I try and do my best to help people, maybe open a door, guide them, give them some feedback on their deck, something, yeah, to give them something. And I think that's important, to be able to ask for help, because when you're young, what you're not looking for is someone to be prescriptive and tell you do this. What you're looking for is perspective. And I think that's important. Yeah.
Which leads me to my final question, which is, if you were young again, that 18-year-old kid sitting in the attic coding away today, what would be the note to yourself, your younger self?
Yeah. Younger Ash, listen to your instinct. You have the right instinct and the intuition. Remember, people are giving you advice, but not everyone's advice is the right advice. Do more, learn more, and continue to experiment. Just because you felt like you've done something wrong doesn't mean it's game over for you. Just because you didn't go to university doesn't mean it means it's game over for you. Yeah. Carry on, right? Keep going. And also, the struggle is part of the journey, because when you're in a struggle, you're like, why me? Why this? Why that? You know, it's like, oh, I wish I did this now, I wish I did, and you have all these regrets. But actually, if you continue swimming on, moving on, you'll get past that.
Keep going.
And I think that whole idea of keep going and building self-belief in yourself, I didn't have much self-belief. You know, I lost my self-belief. And I still felt like, you know, an imposter.
Right.
And I still have it now. You know, sometimes, I'm actually doing the right book.
I'm not good enough or something.
I don't know, actually, I'm not good enough to write a book, right? And, you know, the book went on to win Business Book of the Year, and it's become a bestseller, and it's been translated in multiple languages, and it's in America now. It's like, I didn't think that. And I didn't have that as a goal, by the way.
Right.
I just had an intention that I would like to share a story so that other people can become better in their life, in entrepreneurship and in their life, and have an impact. And it just flew out from there.
Amazing. Ash, you have an amazing personality, and I mean, I could talk with you for hours, but we have to end it here. So I'm gonna say thank you so much for coming and sharing all the amazing insights and knowledge and experience. Hopefully you'll come back again in the future, maybe with another book. But regardless, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for your invite. Thank you, Danish.
Appreciate it.